This is a sign of great things to come. We have some great updates, including Lane Hutson talking about what he needs to do to improve, get past this rookie wall going into the next part of the season. But we have some even bigger updates. One coming out of the SHL as Oliver Kapanen is now 4th in the entire league in points per game after another 3-point night. And we got to talk about Florian Xhekaj, Jesse, who is making an incredible name for himself right now. And there's a certain current Habs player who actually has very comparable stats at the same level. We got to dive into a bunch of great stuff on this episode of Habs Digest. And I want to start with Florian. The first thing I want to show is Pascal Vincent's quote here from January 31st saying, he's got good skills, he's got a good shot, he's willing to drive the net, we know he's tough, his curve's going uphill. It's very interesting how he's progressing and absorbing the information. Does that sound familiar? An awful lot like his brother, Jesse. I mean, Florian this year, 12 goals in 45 games. Is quite good, especially for a guy who was drafted pretty much not for that offensive upside, exploded last year for 34 goals in a point per game OHL season. What have you liked from Florian Xhekaj so far this season before we get into that interesting comparison I got?
That he's paying his dues right now. That, just like how Xhekaj became a fan favorite in Laval before he became so in Montreal, that Florian's doing the same. He's really hitting those bases right now, and you have to love just that energy and that heart that he's really bringing to this team right now. You have to feel, Josh, like this is the type of player that's going to suit this team very well in the playoffs. We're gearing up for that Calder run coming up, and you have to figure like he's going to figure into this quite prominently. And I know we're going to do a comparison like just in a little bit here to Pezzetta, to somebody else. Spoiler alert.
That's good.
Also some Gallagher vibes. Josh, I know that's a higher ceiling, and I don't want to say that Florian's going to get 30 goals in the NHL. I don't think that that's ever going to happen, but I think he might have a little bit more of an offensive ceiling. I just believe if you play the game the right way, as Marty likes to say all the time, the game will reward you. And that's what I expect to see from Florian at the NHL. He's going to get there. He's going to go to the tough areas, going to go heart and soul. And when you got a little bit of skill and when you go into those dirty areas, you often get rewarded in the NHL.
You absolutely do. And again, to hear he's absorbing information like crazy, it's one of the best qualities you can have in a player. Not to mention, this dude's defending his teammates, 122 PIMs, and again, 18 points as a rookie in the AHL regardless. Is not even bad. And you're right, I wanted to compare to Pezzetta because you look at Pezzetta, his career high in goals in the AHL was 6. At any level of his career high in goals was 23, and that was in 2017-18. You got to combine those two teams, Sudbury and Sarnia, because he switched teams partway through. 23 goals in 62 games that year. He has, what is that? I think 13 career AHL goals in, over 100 games. And you have Florian, who has 12 goals in 45 this season already. So I'm just saying, Pezzetta has been a staple of the Habs lineup for the last few years, though I will say through some tough times. Jesse, when you look at these comparables, again, we might have thought, Florian as a bottom 6 guy might be a stretch, might not. Some other comparable players with comparable stats that maybe don't even bring the size that Florian brings, though Pezzetta's a bit faster, right? A little smaller, quicker, but hey, he definitely has a place in the NHL, and you can look at other examples just like Pez to say, hey, look, Florian, your shot is really there.
Yeah, and I'm a believer in really these numbers. It's interesting to look at because it shows that Michael Pezzetta was able to earn a job in the NHL from a very similar kind of resume right here. So, I mean, with Florian, I expect, just like how Pezzetta really brings that energy and with that physicality, those hits, you affect the momentum of the game so much. And that's what I expect Florian to do, kind of be that next generation. But there's that upside. I think that we're going to see more production. He's a little bit of a late bloomer. That's the things that we need to remember about the Xhekaj. These numbers right now aren't totally, showing what's going to happen in the future for him. So I feel like that offense is just going to start blooming more and more. And that's what's really exciting about this prospect and what he could bring to the bottom 6.
Yeah, absolutely. You guys, leave some love for Florian down below. It's been amazing what he's been showing. And, my hope for him to make the Habs at some point in the next couple of years, it's increasing day by day. He's incredibly fun to watch. But we got to talk about another prospect. And it's a guy that we've talked about a lot, Jesse. But my goodness, Oliver Kapanen, we just got to talk about him again. I'll just actually show this first in this incredible screenshot that I tried to take of the goal going in. But this wasn't his goal. This was after an incredible outlet pass he made. Oliver Kapanen springs Jonathan Dahlen for his 3rd point of the night. 28 points. Now, this said 27 games. Once the game finished, it was 28. This was his 28th game today. But that's the thing, Jesse. He had a goal, 2 assists. And he is now 4th in the entire SHL in points per game. He's one of only 4 players in the SHL to be putting up a point per game. And clearly the youngest by a mile of any of them. Well, I mean, it's 3 years a mile. I would say so in terms of development, you know? So now, well, not to mention Hollander and Dahlin are both actually on his team as well, which is crazy. Like, that's a nice trio. They've been, actually, I think they were all involved on some of the goals there today, right? They all play together a good bit. So, but Oliver Kapanen, Jesse, I know we talk about him a lot, but he's starting to, like, I feel like we don't hear enough about him outside of our show. Some people talk about him. Patrick Bexel, of course, on Twitter. Go follow him. He gives all these great updates on European Habs prospects. But holy crap, a point per game again in the SHL. As other people sort of fallen off, he just keeps improving his game. I'm becoming, again, just like I said with Florian Xhekaj, day by day, more confident this guy will be a staple in the Habs lineup in the near future.
This is just amazing developments for this team. We know what Demidov is doing, being one of the best young players in the KHL ever. And guess what? Oliver Kapanen is actually doing the same thing. We take a deeper dive, not just to this season, but he's actually in the top 10 of U22 SHL players. He was in the top 10. Now with his performance today, these stats need to be updated, but he's probably going to be in that top 5 at this point, which is, I mean, just absolutely insane given the history of a pretty strong league there. So. Sure. What we're starting to see from Kapanen is that he has skill. We're getting some Lehkonen vibes a little bit from him, strong defensive game as well. The question is really at this point, Josh, is how much of that skill are we going to see at the NHL level? Because it looks like he's got a decent amount of it. He's willing to go to the hard areas. It seems like he really just needs the size at this point, but he's showing the speed. He's showing the skill. So, I mean, this is just incredible body of work that he's really doing this season.
Yeah, it's really crazy. I mean, we saw some flashes of it at the NHL level, but right now, like, when you watch the highlights of him playing, the game looks easy. Now, I'm not going to say, like, you're watching him and he's, like, dangling opponents, looks like he's playing against junior players, because that's not really what his game is, and that's not really what's happening. But when you watch it, it's just like, he's always there. Puck's always on his stick. He's always making solid passes. Like, he's around good things when good things happen. And that's one of those things that you can't really teach. And it's unbelievable, his sense for the game and his IQ right now. So, again, so much hype from us for Oliver Kapanen. Just keeping you guys updated on that, because I feel like if you're not paying attention, he could slip under your radar, but he really, really shouldn't. Final thing, though, Jesse, I want to talk a bit about Lane Hutson. Now, Lane Hutson has gone through a little bit of a cold stretch recently. I mean, you know, falling down the points ladder, the rookie points ladder. Celebrini is now the favorite for the Calder, which he kind of was for a bit anyway. Yeah, sure. But, you know, we're ready to come back and play some hockey. And Lane Hutson was asked, hey, like, you know, did you use this break as a bit of time off from hockey? No, not really. I kept thinking about coming back. I felt like the break was too long, honestly. But then talking about what he needs to do to get better, he said sometimes the pucks go in, sometimes they don't. I have to go back to what worked at the beginning of the season. And Coach Marty St. Louis said something very similar. Sometimes he gets into trouble because he's looking for that scoring, basically, is what he was saying. If we're losing by 2 goals in the third, he's going to take more risks. He should take more chances to try and get back to into the game. He's got to manage these games and the scoreboard. And again, I really like these Marty quotes recently, Jesse, kind of saying straight up, this is what these players need to do. He did go on to say, like, look, Lane, like, he has no worries that Lane's going to get back to that form. But to hear Lane himself saying, look, I know what I got to do. I got to get back to this. I can't wait to get back and play hockey. This dude was at Boston University with his Terriers practicing during this break. You got to imagine that the Lane train is more locked in than almost anyone on this team right now.
Just raring to go, says so much. Like, this guy just loves being out on the ice. And again, showing why many people are starting to believe that he's the best player chosen from his draft year, even though he was in the second round. At this point in time, I have to believe them. And you know what? Given his work ethic and the way that we're seeing the tip of the iceberg from Lane Hutson right now, I mean, I think that that's going to stand true for a good minute here. So, I mean, it's really exciting to see, you know, what he kind of brings, because the effect that he has on this team, Josh, like, we almost haven't talked about it enough, is that with the last 2 points in his last 9 games, it's basically like how Lane Hutson goes. So does the Montreal Canadiens. We've been trying to figure out, okay, things were working well. What happened for this team to kind of fall to the wayside a little bit? I think with that equation, we have to look at Patrik Laine, his production. There's obviously the Guhle injury. There's the Heineman injuries. But Lane Hutson might be the most important factor in all this. We're just seeing when he gets points, basically, so does the Montreal Canadiens. It's that catalyst. And we know that energy that he brings to the Bell Center. When he's getting the crowd like hyped up the way that he is, like, how can you not win? So, we're really starting to see the early effects that he has on this team as a whole.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We talk a lot about how Line stopping getting points is affecting this losing streak, and the Habs have been 31st in the NHL over that stretch, but Lane Hutson's been part of that as well. It's kind of been the whole team. The offense has been struggling. Not any one given player, but again, like Lane Hutson, he's a rookie. This is just the rookie wall. Almost every rookie goes through this, and so to see how he bounces back for this last stretch of the season, where Montreal is going to be more locked in than ever, put more of a focus on winning than they have probably all season, having a bunch of guys come back fresh and motivated. It's going to be very interesting to see, but let us know your thoughts down below. How is Lane Hutson going to bounce back from this cold stretch, even though he's still been an incredible defenseman? We'd love to hear from you. That'll do it for this episode of Habs Digest. If you enjoyed, leave a like, comment, subscribe to the channel. And hey, you made it this far. If you're watching before the Four Nations, boy, we can't wait for that one. If you're watching it after, well, leave a comment down below on how you thought it went. I'm Josh Gosse, my co-host, Jesse Poirier. We'll catch you in the next one.